Hello, and welcome to the Muses Lab, your destination for all things pleasure as it relates to our human experience, relationships, spirituality, and sexuality. I invite you to join me on this adventure of discovery and hope what you receive inspires you to become the muse of your life's journey. So, without further ado, let's explore. I have one goal in this episode, and that's to get through it without breaking out into a full on snot cry. I have been tasked to tell my story, and I didn't realize how vulnerable that would be for me because um, I can share certain vulnerabilities, but it's the ones that, in my mind, I believe bring me some semblance of shame or give people a peek into the darker parts of myself that I feel would be judged is where the challenge comes in for me. And right now I'm going through some shit. But I feel like that's a subjective phrase because everybody at some point or in some shape, form, or fashion is going through some shit. And, it's all respective to everyone's individual experience. But when I'm going through some shit, I don't go through it publicly. I go dark, which ironically, I just sent like a group text to my core friends and was like, hey, I'm finna go dark. Um, because I don't know how to navigate my feelings and emotions in this space. I do know that I am making conscious decisions to have many breakdowns and keep moving, which I never do. I never have a mini breakdown and keep moving. I just have a mini breakdown and I fall completely apart and I crumble into pieces and I'm shattered across the floor and I don't know how to pick myself back up again. But I am consciously being present in the mini breakdowns that I'm having and choosing to step forward and take action as I am falling apart or what feels like falling apart. I titled this episode Choosing Yourself Feels Like Punishment because the girlies, and this is broad. The girlies will tell you choose yourself. You got to choose yourself. Even I say it, you got to choose yourself. But choosing yourself is one of the loneliest decisions that you're ever going to make. It's a brave decision, right? But it's a lonely one because choosing yourself often means removing or isolating yourself from people who have been influential in you not choosing yourself, or the decision that you make to choose yourself cuts you off from things that have been forcing you not to choose yourself. And when those false safety nets fall apart, you realize how naked and alone you are. You realize that those safety nets that you thought were safety nets weren't real. And you're not actually really floating, you're like falling. You're falling and you don't know how to slow down the descent because everything is happening in real time. Like when you choose yourself, things happen quickly and they happen in real time. And it places you in a position to have to redesign what your life looks like now that you have chosen yourself. Because The life you build when you don't choose yourself is something that you are used to experiencing and used to having. It's your norm. So when you choose yourself, now you have to create a new normal. And that's not easy. That's what a lot of people don't tell you. People don't tell you that choosing yourself is a shift. It's a mind shift. It's a values and belief shift. It's boundaries that you have now set up in place that you have to uphold, because choosing yourself is not a singular decision. Choosing yourself is something that you have to do every day. And recently I chose myself, and I feel like I'm reaping I'm experiencing the repercussions of choosing myself. And it's not supposed to be a bad thing to choose yourself. Choosing yourself is supposed to feel liberating. But at the onslaught of when you choose yourself, it is not liberating. I believe liberation is on the far end of the spectrum of the journey when choosing yourself continuously. Choosing yourself in the moment, it's like a dopamine rush of liberation. And then once that dopamine rush ends, you're like, oh shit, I chose myself. And you're looking at the aftermath of your decisions, and it's scary. I chose to resign from my job for three reasons. One, because the work environment, as a neurospicy person, as a neurodivergent person, was no longer safe for me. And while maybe accommodations could have been made, the excuses that I would have received, the workarounds, and everything else, I didn't have the energy to have accommodations, simple accommodations, uh, made. I didn't have the energy to have those things delayed, because when you are a neurodivergent person and your accommodation is I need to work remote in a place where remote work is not favored, that then becomes a problem, because if they let me work remote, then somebody else is going to be like, well, I want to work remote. And they may not necessarily have a disability, but they just don't want to go into the office. And for the powers that be, that's not enough reason to be like, I should let you work remote, because you knew the job. You knew the job when you took it, right? You knew that this hybrid environment requires you to be in the office a certain amount of days. If you're within 20-25 miles of a satellite office, it requires you to be in the office a certain amount of days. And you knew that when you took the job. So you can't just be like all of a sudden, oh, I don't want to go into the office, because then you're not meeting the requirements of the job. But someone like me that has a disability that actually needs to work remote, if they let me do it, then someone's going to complain, and then it's going to be a problem. And I didn't have the energy to navigate that, because I was already burnt out. I had been burnt out for months, more months than I can count. So that's one of the reasons why I resigned. The second reason why I resigned, burnout. Burnout. Um, my previous role before this last one, I was also experiencing burnout there. But what kept me sane was being a part of the Diversity Inclusion Committee. And that particular company was global. So I worked internationally with other leaders of diversity within the 10 countries where the agency existed across the network. And I remember saying to myself, man, if I could get paid to just do DEI work, I could do this all day. Fast forward, I got offered a job at the company where I left originally to be the director of diversity and inclusion. And for me, it felt like a dream come true because it felt like I was finally taking on a role, taking on a position to do what I loved. And I really have a strong affinity for DEI or DEIB or whatever acronyms that we use, but diversity and inclusion and equity and justice, I have a strong affinity for it. I always have. And for that to become a job was like magic for me. So I took on that role. I manifested my job. I manifested my job. And when I took on that role, I soon realized, unfortunately, that the company that I was working for leaned heavily on performative DEI and not systemic change. And it it brought a sense of disappointment. But I was determined to figure out how I could still make an impact there, even though there was a lot of red tape. There was a lot of walls and borders that I had to work around and try to reach and really try to be impactful in that role. I was brought into that company by someone who I called friend. I don't know where we stand. And it's interesting because I said to my brother, I have a younger brother, and I said to him with his little friend, said to him with his little friend, if you don't know where y'all stand, then you don't stand anywhere. So, ironically, if I don't know where me and the friend stand, then I guess she and I don't stand anywhere. It's very ambiguous, and I can say that. But she brought me into the organization where I used to work. And she's a senior leader in the organization. And because she is my friend, we shared, I shared my challenges with my role, things that I wanted to do. We had equal sentiments about the overall structure of how this role could be. And she convinced me to work under her. What I didn't say is that her and I have worked across 5 different organizations. It's really like 3, but we've worked across 3 different organizations. And in each of those organizations, she was my manager, and that did not work out for the best. It didn't. Like, she's not a good manager for me. I can't speak on anyone else, but for me, she's not a good manager for me. And I knew that. And I was liberated by the fact that I didn't have to work with her at all. I could make a name for myself, operate in individuality, and build myself up as a leader in the DEI space. And due to my frustration and not really thinking through the proposed role to transition into, I made an impulsive decision to go back working underneath my friend as her direct report. Because what was sold to me was that I would have an opportunity to do more DEI work and multicultural marketing and blah, blah, blah. Bullshit. I can say that now. This is bullshit. But that's how it was sold to me, that I would have the opportunity to really stretch my limbs in this space. And I made the impulsive decision to work under her. And what I did not realize until after it was already done, that the moment I moved from the DEI role, the role that I manifested, and I manifested that role in a matter of months, the role that I've manifested, I walked away from my manifestations to go work alongside my friend. And it was the beginning of the end. I've worked plenty of roles where I felt inadequate, but never in a way that I experienced here. The level of inadequacy that I felt in this role was beyond what I could imagine. I learned something towards the end of 2022 and the beginning of 2023. The lesson that I learned is that your gifts will turn off when you are utilizing them in a place and in a space where you do not belong. And every day I felt like I was an idiot. I felt so stupid. And I never feel like that because I know I'm smart. I know I'm smart as fuck. But I felt so stupid. It was like I couldn't catch up. I couldn't figure it out. And at the time, I hadn't received my ADHD diagnosis, and I was absolutely operating in a dysregulated state because I thought that this role was going to be an evolved version of the DEI space. I was going to do multicultural marketing. I thought that's what I was going to do, and it was nothing of the sort. All of that in my job description was complete fluff, which was made up. So not only was the DEI director role made up, the role that I resigned from, that was made up too. And it just goes to show you that people just make shit up all the time and create unrealistic expectations about roles that they just made up in their head and expect you to perform them. And you start feeling inadequate. You start feeling unworthy, like you don't know what you're doing. And do I even belong here? Am I enough? And I spiraled. I was in a depressive state for months and didn't even realize that I was in a depressive state. Like it was so bad that there was literally like this black overlay over my eyes. And I didn't know until I came out of it and was like, man, everything feels like it's in Technicolor. Like I was on a shroom trip. Like it was that bad. I had spiraled so deep into a dark hole. And at the time, I had deaths in my family. There were so many transitions happening, and me and my manager slash friend were operating in a space of discord. A lot of whatever she was experiencing, I felt the brunt of that. So there were a lot of projections that were happening. I was still operating in somewhat of an HR capacity because DEI is a function of HR. And I didn't know how to navigate that properly. I didn't know how to properly transition into that. There was no time for anyone to train me. I had to literally jump in the ocean and swim. I had to keep myself afloat. And I thought I could figure it out. I thought I would be okay. And last year, around this time, last year, 2023, we're talking, I experienced a level of microaggression that I have never experienced. No, that I hadn't experienced in over a decade. See, I worked in corporate for a very long time, and I've always been either one of two Black people in my department or the only Black person, not just Black woman, the only Black person in my department. And I have been harassed, I have been bullied, I have been microaggressed, I have been made to feel like my work is inadequate, I have been made to feel like I don't know what I'm doing, I have been made to feel like whatever I do is never going to be enough. I have been boxed out of growth and positions. I have experienced racism, blatant racism in my face. I have been purposefully closed out of positions because I'm Black, because at the time I used to wear afro and wear my hair natural. There have been so many racial things that I have experienced in corporate. And because this particular organization boasts of being like a family, which, sorry, friends, that shit is a red flag. But because they boast of being about a family, I thought this was going to be different. And I had never experienced a coworker lie on me, but I experienced that. I had a coworker lie on me, lie and say that we never met, we never had a meeting, when I had the notes in my notebook and the calendar invite on my calendar that was accepted with the recording in the Teams chat. I asked for feedback. No one knows how to do that. Answers are vague. Nobody wants to say, oh, what you're creating is a little too black, because now this is Black History Month when I'm experiencing all of this. Nobody wants to say, oh, you're too black. This is sounding too black. This is not sounding neutral. This is not sounding all lives matter. Nobody's going to say that to my face. But the undertones imply such. And I was accused of many things and put on a PIP. I hadn't been put on a PIP since the last time I got harassed on the job and I had to get my union rep involved. But I went through it and I came out on the other side with a merit increase. And any HR professional will tell you that is unheard of. You don't put somebody on a PIP and then turn around and give them a merit increase. That's not how that works. But it is telling. And I'll let you connect the dots for yourself. And when I got my ADHD diagnosis later on in the early part of the year, I thought I could finally figure out how to navigate life because it's official. And I was in therapy. I had a psychiatrist. I was doing all the things to help manage my symptoms, and I finally got put on medication. And I thought maybe this could work. But I was still experiencing those microaggressions. I was still cleaning up other people's work and not being acknowledged for it. My manager was still being weird, putting these unrealistic expectations on me, telling me people are wanting to see more of me, but not giving clear definition of what more means. Be wary of people who say that to you, whether it's in a workplace or whether it's in a relationship. I need more from you. What is more? Define more, because that's your metric. More is your metric. So if you can't define for me what more is, how can I give that to you? It's ambiguous. And being in any type of relationship, business, platonic, romantic, and a space of ambiguity does nothing for either party involved. It creates a circular current where you're constantly asking me for something without it being clearly defined and being pissed off that I don't know how to give it. And that was the dynamic between my manager and I, constantly asking for things that were clearly undefined and me not being able to provide it and being ostracized and reprimanded because of it. It was like it was never enough. There was nothing that I could do that was ever enough. Working around senior leaders who were too busy trying to tout as if they knew everything, as opposed to ensuring the collective of mid and junior level employees that were working under them had the resources that they need, had the clarity that they need, was supported the way they needed to be, so that the machine that is an organization can run smoothly. It was removed of it. Realizing that being in an office environment was overstimulating for me and not knowing how to navigate needing to work remote didn't help. I was tired. I was tired of trying to show up for an organization, for a person where I just would never be enough. And when my manager informed me in what was to be a private conversation that no one wanted to work with me, where did that leave me? I tried to transition into something different, but there was really nowhere else for me to go. There were no other departments where I had skill sets that were transferable. What other manager would I work under? I was very niche and boxed in where I was. So there was no way for me to just kind of float around and figure out what worked for me. But also, no one cared to afford me that opportunity, though I saw other employees be afforded that opportunity. So I was very clear on what it was, and it was very understated and nondescript. So when I decided, after having conversations with my care team, when I decided that it was in my best interest to go, I chose myself. And my manager was the third reason why I left. It wasn't a safe environment for me anymore. What type of friendship we had was practically destroyed during that whole debacle with this performance review, this made up performance review that was centered around someone being very pissy about me challenging not specifically their authority, but their knowledge and acumen on what Black History and Black History Month was to be. It was a personal statement. It wasn't even a personal statement. It was a statement of purpose. And all because there wasn't a collective agreement on what the statement of purpose would be. It led to me having to endure another performance review and being put on a PIP. Because this wasn't about my work performance, but my character and how I was perceived to be. My interactions with senior leaders caused discord. It caused people to feel away. And because they felt away, they needed to remind me who was in authority here. And it wasn't me. So, how my manager handled that situation is something that I will never forget. And while I still find ways to let it go and release, I'll never forget how she handled me. This was someone who was supposed to be my friend. And she moved and didn't even give me a heads up. Her interactions with me went ghost. And it made me look like the villain in everybody's narrative. And at that time, I wasn't in a space to be the villain because I did nothing wrong. No one cared about how their interactions with me affected me. But everybody took a highlight to how my responses to how they were reacting to me made them feel and turned it into an assessment of my performance. For a month, I had no contact with my manager. For a month, I was removed from projects. And I worked at an agency. And if anybody knows agency life, you got to be billable. And if you're not billable, then you're not working. And if you're not working, then you don't got no job. So I went through that for a month and a half. And then turned around and had to clean up somebody else's mess and became the hero. And it's just weird how you can go from being the hero and being at the height, at the top of grace, to falling on your face and being the villain, to all of a sudden being the hero again. That is visceral. That is so visceral. It's insane. To be in such an extreme high, hit an extreme low, and then be in such another extreme high. And everybody was just so, well, how did you turn yourself around? I didn't turn myself around. I was just doing the same shit I was doing before y'all put me in this situation. I didn't do anything different. I didn't. The only thing different is this ADHD diagnosis. And I just implemented systems and routines so that I can properly manage my symptoms. So if there was something different, it was how I navigated life with my routines. But I didn't move different on my job. And once you experience, at least what felt like for me, betrayal, once you experience that with someone who's supposed to be your friend, that's not your manager, that you got to deal with every day, that's an uncomfortable environment. And everybody's looking at me like, oh, she's not going to speak to you. She's still mad at you. Like I'm the immature one. Being almost forced to see things from other people's perspective and no one extending that same grace to you is isolating. And I just got tired of being in an isolated space. I got tired of giving my all and receiving nothing in return. I got tired of pushing myself and pushing my brain to pull things that just wouldn't pull. I just was tired, dreading on Sunday to have to clock in on Monday, excited on Friday that I don't have to clock in again until Monday, looking for my weekend and being so burnt out that I don't have much energy to give to myself and to my creative projects and to my loved ones who I would like to stay with and experience life with. I had energy for nothing, not even myself. So I chose myself. And the moment I did it, that dopamine rush came in. It was liberating. My blood pressure dropped. My blood pressure dropped. I took a moment to recalibrate myself, to rest, to catch up on the sleep debt that I had been acquiring. And when all that dust settled, and even in the midst of rest, I was trying to figure out my life because I jumped ship. I didn't jump ship and jump on another dock. I jumped ship. And most people will tell you not to resign or quit your job without another job, but I didn't have that. I didn't believe that I had that luxury. And hindsight is 2020, right? So do I regret my decision? Absolutely not. I would do it again. However, I would do it with a plan. And that's the part when it comes to choosing yourself that the girlies don't tell you. But you got to have a plan. And you can't be impulsive and choose yourself today. I mean, you could choose yourself today, but there are little small ways that you can choose yourself, right? You can choose yourself by making a passive decision in your mind that you're going to actually choose yourself. But making the active decision to choose yourself needs and requires a plan. You need to have contingencies in place when you choose yourself. You need to understand that once you do that, you close the door behind you to other things that no longer exist because the choose yourself path is different. It's a blank slate. It is a blank canvas, and you have to create that. Again, not knowing that you have created life based upon the decision to not choose yourself. And that's something that you know how to do naturally. Choosing yourself is not something that you know how to do naturally. You now have to make it a habit. It has to be a daily active choice. You have to build momentum and consistency when choosing yourself. And often you want to go back to when you didn't choose yourself because that's easier. That's something that you know. Choosing yourself when you've never done it before is foreign. It's a foreign language. And it's a foreign language that you have to learn on the fly. And there's no one there to help you synthesize what these symbols and messages mean because choosing yourself is subjective. The girlies will make you think that choosing yourself is universal. It's not, it's subjective. You're not going to quit your job and in 30 days you're going to make six figures. That's a lie. That's not how this works. I know there's a lot of Instagram ads and Facebook ads, step out on faith, if they even say that. Step out, treat yourself, you know, leave your 9 to 5, help take this course, this class on how to build a digital course, and in 30 days you'll make 5 figures or 6 figures. No, you won't. Because first of all, you got to spend 5 figures in order to make it. Because that course that they telling you about, that shit a couple racks. And if you aren't with the Budgetnista crew, the Live Richer crew, and you don't know how to save and have your spending cash account, your bills account, your investment account, if you don't have all of those things in place, and you just like, I gotta choose myself, fuck it, I gotta jump, and you don't have all of those back end foundational spaces in place, this is gonna be a lonely ass road where you are going to question your decision at every turn. I question my decision at every turn. Was I too fast? Was I too impulsive? Did I not have a proper exit strategy? There are yeses and nos to those questions for me. When you choose yourself, you have to have a proper strategy. You have to think it through. Choosing yourself cannot be an impulsive decision. Sorry to tell you. There are a lot of people who are going to disagree with me on that one, but choosing yourself is not an impulsive decision, because when you move out of impulse, the results are impulsive. It's going to feel like the world is punishing you for choosing yourself, because this world isn't designed for you to choose yourself. We live in a capitalistic society. That's not built for you to choose yourself. So there's going to be forces that are going to be in resistance to you when you choose yourself. And if you are not strong enough mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically, if you don't have just an ounce of mustard seed of strength when you choose yourself, you're going to fold. And you're going to go right back to not choosing yourself. But the thing is, when you go, fuck it, this was wrong. I did this too fast. Let me go back and get another job. You're not going to get that immediately. You might be out of work for a year. And if you live in an at-will state, in a state that does not favor resignations or quitting, they're going to deny you your unemployment. And if you don't have cash saved up, you up shit's creek. They don't tell you that. These social media ads and these coaches, they don't tell you that. They don't tell you the adverse effects of choosing yourself. They got you hooked on the dopamine of the positives of choosing yourself. Because yes, you should see the cup half full, but you also have to know that you got to keep filling up that fucking cup. Because the cup is going to drain itself. If there's nothing, if you're not pouring anything into the cup is going to drain itself. You have to see, of course, the optimistic aspect of choosing yourself, but you have to be aware of the realistic aspects of choosing yourself. And they are not pretty at all. It's hard to choose yourself. And I'm not telling you not to do it. I'm telling you to think it through. Because when you don't think through choosing yourself, when you just jump out the window, that fall is hard as fuck. And it's a fast fall. And you trying to slow it down and you can't. And choosing yourself when you jump out the window is you looking at all the decisions that you made when you didn't choose yourself flash before your eyes. It is literally an unaliving of yourself and a rebirth of yourself in this space of self prioritization. And then it's just desert. And yeah, your spirit guides and your ancestors and your angels and whatever deities that you resonate with and that you have worship with and have communion with, they're there. They're there. Sometimes they feel a lot further away than what you expect. It's often quiet because you have to commune with yourself when you choose yourself. All the parts of yourself, the parts that you have compartmentalized by not choosing yourself, the parts that are screaming to be heard now that you have chosen yourself, the light, the shadow, the neutral, your ego, your favorite self, your higher self, all the different layers of yourself emerge when you choose yourself. And your goal, at least at the beginning stages of self prioritization, is integration. And nobody can teach you how to do that. You got to learn how to do that on your own. You are literally learning a new language. You are learning a new lifestyle. You are learning a new disposition. You are learning how to hear again with self as the center. You are learning how to feel again with self as the center. You are learning how to synthesize again with self as the center. And it's possible that people who were with you when you chose not to choose yourself may reappear, and they may have different roles and interactions. But it's safe to say that a lot of those people are never going to be around ever again. You're recalibrating and you're realigning yourself, figuring out what the new frequency is that magnetizes things that amplify your decision to self prioritize. So it's going to feel like punishment. It's going to feel like you made the wrong decision, and you didn't. But if you don't know what's ahead when you choose yourself, you're going to go on this journey blind with rose-colored glasses, and you're going to abandon ship before you even start. So I'm here to tell you, yes, choose yourself. But just know, at least for maybe the first 6 months to a year, it's going to feel like punishment. And you're not actually being punished. It's just a new environment that you're learning. It's all new. And you have to adjust and adapt and carry that book pack of lessons with you and apply it to this new terrain. So, I send love to all of you who are like me, who chose themselves and are at the beginning stages of building momentum to continuously and consistently choose ourselves. I send love to all of you because this is the hard part. And I'm sure it gets better because that's what they say. But I want us to be comfortable being realistic with how we're feeling so that we don't go back into a space of compartmentalization. I want you to break down and cry and feel it, but keep moving. Don't stop moving. And if you fall to your knees because it's too much, take that moment to rest and then get back up and keep going. Let the tears fuel you. Let the hurt fuel you. Let the scared and the fear fuel you. Let it fuel you. I know the Christians say God doesn't give us a spirit of fear, but you know what? If God is, and the spirit of fear is not a negative, it's a signpost so that we can understand what it is and that we can alchemize it. Because if we are to honor our divinity, we have to be able to alchemize all that we are feeling, experiencing, and sensing, and use that as the bridge to whatever our desires and our goals are as divine beings. We have to know that we have the ability to do that. And of course, that starts with choosing ourselves. But in the beginning, that shit gonna hurt. I thank you for tapping in and listening to me share these vulnerable parts of myself. And I hope the story that I shared here helps someone in some way. Until we meet again.
Thank you for tapping into the Muses Lab. I hope you enjoyed this week's adventure. Be sure to like this episode, subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, and share the wealth with others. Dive deeper into the lab by joining the Pleasure Frequency list at www.themuseslab.com. Receive weekly musings, early access, and exclusive drops, as well as discounts on products and services. Thank you once again for tapping in. Until next time.